Because the Nigerian politicians now know that whatever shit they gave to us, the judiciary will, under anachronistic legal jargon, rubber stamp it.
To help me to welcome J.S Okutepa SAN. You started primary school at the age of 17.
Absolutely, you are correct. In that village, we had a man that was a big man. His son did not pass, but my brother passed. So instead of saying, oh, let me assist to pay the school fees of my brother, he now met my dad and said, so I got to the VC's office, very large place, and then under military, members of the armed forces, ruling council, big men, and I entered the office and I said, I cannot be discriminated against. What sort of country is that? Pastor Dr. Paul Enenche and his wife were in the faculty of medicine then.
In Nigeria, the judiciary seemed to have continuously given laws that are not enforced by the executive. So if the judiciary interprets the law and the executive fails to enforce it, what happens in such a situation?
When a judicial decision patronizes those with dirty hands, how do you expect those dirty hands to enforce the decision of the judiciary they know is contaminated? Judges should avoid mingling with politicians. The code of conduct for judicial officers is impartiality, avoidance of impropriety. The code of conduct for politicians is impurity. Anything goes that give them power, including.
You are the lead counsel in the ADC case. What is the background of that story, and what is the part that politicians, the ruling government, is playing in that case?
The Court of Appeal made an order that was gratuitous, and it is the principles of law of considerable antiquity that our courts are not Father Christmas to give to a party until we agree that what is wrong and stop giving baptismal name of right to wrongs. Nothing will work. That's why in the legal profession, NBA election can be rigged, and the person who is rigged and put in power will be speaking jargons in English on television.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning. My name is KaaTruths. Of course, I'm sure you're used to seeing my face. I will be your host once again for today, and I have a distinguished SAN in the studio with me today. Someone a lot of people, including myself, respect so much. We hold him to a high esteem because of the things that's accomplished, and his story is so inspiring. I can't wait for you to hear it. So help me to welcome J.S Okutepa SAN. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Your name is K, but
so the full
let me not leak. Let me not let the cat out of the bag. Thank you, Armstrong.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you making our time to honor us with your praises. You're someone I've admired from afar. Especially because of the story surrounding your background and your journey to becoming who you are today. While I and my team were carrying out a research in preparation for this interview, I stumbled on one fact about you that got me speechless for a very long time. And that was when I read that you started primary school at the age of 17. I don't know if that is correct.
Absolutely, you are correct.
When I read it,
yes, September 1977.
So it got me wild. And looking at it, you were called to the Nigerian Bar in 1991.
Absolutely, right.
And became SAN in 2011. I need you to please explain to us the journey, how you made such a seemingly impossible journey possible for someone like you.
Well, let me not sound too ecclesiastical in the beginning, but let me say that the map of our destiny is in the hands of the Almighty. And so our destiny, each and every one of us, to become something, all we need to attain that milestone is to be determined to get there, no matter the excruciating obstacles on your way to that journey. My story of life is being put in a book form, and very shortly it will come, and I title it From Grass to Grace. It's true, the story of my coming to where God had brought me now, I think it's as excruciating as the story of my birth. I was told that my mother found it difficult to give birth to me, and I was told that I remained in her womb for 3 whole days, and there was no hospital, and there was no road. And so Nigeria had been in a very terrible state of affair right from the time I was born. And so I was told that my father was almost giving up, and I resigned to fate when I crossed over to a New Year. And then his friend was passing by. They are both late now. Late Baba Abdul Dekina, who I was told was a traditional birth person who can tell you, cut this leaf, bring this leaf, squeeze it, give it to a woman, and no matter the level of labor pain, the child will be delivered. So I was told that happened, and my mother was delivered of me. My uncle told me the story, and it was 1st of January 1960. So I ended up in that my foster father's house because I was told that my father had vowed that if he was able to deliver his wife and the woman didn't die and didn't give a stillbirth, then if I were to be a lady, he then had authority to marry me out. And if I were to be a man, that I turned out to be, then I will end up living with him. And so it was a divine arrangement, unknown to me and unknown to everybody. So I was delivered, and I could remember when I was 5 years old, in the evening, that my foster father was passing in a village called Ofekpe on his way to another village called Ajakechi. They are both in local government now, but at that material time, we're in Old Kwara State. So I was told, and I cried to follow him. And so I left my father's compound and my parents at the age of 5. So I ended up growing up in a village called Ajakechi, very close to my mother's place. So that was where I was. I was brought up by my foster father and my foster mother, Mama Ora Abdul Dekina and Baba Abdul Dekina. So I was there until sometimes in 1970 or thereabout, when my dad had left that village called Ofekpe to a place called Apata, now in the Galamela local government. And so I didn't know what happened, but something happened, and I found myself with my dad. And my foster father did not come to take me back again. So I became the only one helping my father on the farm from 1970. So my age mates were going to school. My dad did not want me to go to school. He reasoned rightly in his view then, but wrongly in my estimation, that when you go to school, you are likely to be harmed. There is this superstition belief in the village that if you go to school, people are likely to harm you, all sort of superstitious
Belief.
belief that led to many children not being allowed to go to school. So I ended up becoming a very big farmer. And I was helping him, and the old man will not even want to hear anything called school. But when I see my age mates going to school, coming back, sitting under the tree with slates, blackboard, what do they call this? There was this notice board or something like
Blackboard.
So they will be doing evening lesson. So I will join them. So if they are reading A, E, I will also join them to do whatever they do. So they graduated from reading in native to English. I joined them. So they were going to school. I was going to farm until sometimes on the 3rd of September 1977, when I was 17 years plus. My elder brother, who himself did also not go to school, learned motorcycle mechanic. And he was desirous that I should go to school. He's my elder brother of the same parents. After him is my middle youngest elder sister, then myself. So I remember he was coming to beg my father to allow me to go to school. And my father didn't agree. So I had a conspiracy with him to go to school. And he has a friend. The name of his friend was Mr. Sylvester Idakoji Alaisotosh, who was the headmaster of local government primary school authority in Enugu, in the current Igalamela Odo local government. And so the man agreed with my senior brother that I can come and start primary 2, because I could read, I could write, whatever anybody in class 2 or class 3, class 4 who were reading, I could read, I could write, but I didn't have the benefit of going to school. So Mr. Tosh then admitted me to class 2. In class 2, I became more even intelligent, I was told, than those in that class. So I did 3 months, and the man moved me to class 3. So I was in the class 3, and I ended up in class 3. But the environment at home was toxic for me, hostile, because my dad would find fault in everything because I stubbornly
went to school,
ran to primary school. So I then ran away from that apata to Ida and started learning motorcycle mechanic. And so I ended up not continuing my school from primary 3. So eventually, even in Ida, the heat of my father's unhappiness was too much for me. So I now have to run to a village called Obagu in the present of local government, in my maternal place, my mother's place. So it was in that Ofu that I was continuing my motorcycle mechanic, thinking that if I got to that Obagu, I would be able to go to school. Unfortunately, I didn't get admission. And so I continued to do my motorcycle mechanic. My dad didn't know where I was. Then on the 28th of April, 1978, something dramatic happened. I had a terrible motorcycle fire incident that engulfed my body as I repaired a lady machine. I was starting it, and the plug cap was not properly covered. The spark from the motorcycle I repaired got in contact with the petrol, and the entire motorcycle got burnt. And if you could see my leg, this leg became terribly burnt, and there was no hospital, and there was nobody to help me. But I had an uncle, Uncle Matthew Edime, in that place who dispensed, he has chemists. So he was the only one that was giving me procaine penicillin injection. And this leg refused to heal until everybody said, oh, you ran away, your dad is not happy with you, you need to look for your dad to apologize. And true to their type words, God helped me and killed my daddy's cousin in that village called Obago. So, and naturally he has to come. And he came for the funeral. So, but I didn't get the liver to go and meet him. And because I couldn't have done so, so I now organized my uncles, my mother's uncle, Isaiah, my uncle Isaiah died in Canada. So Isaiah and in Canada are the same father and mother. And in Canada is my maternal grandmother. So Isaiah now has to organize the elders. So until they got to my father, pleaded with him, I'm in a terrible circumstances of disobedience. And I had come to apologize. He should forgive me. And he forgave me. And I can tell you like miracle, the 31st procaine penicillin injection, my leg became healed. So eventually, because I was still desirous of going to school, so I went back home. I was working with him, going to farm, and then sometimes in December 1979, I ran away to Enugu to meet my elder brother who was in the military. So, and my dad did not know where I went. I ended up meeting my brother, who took me to number 47 Ogidi Street, Oguye Road, in a commercial center called Igbebike Commercial Institute, where I learned how to type and learn shorthand. So, and I did that for 3 months. Unfortunately, again, the relationship between me and my senior brother was toxic, was terrible. So I recall that while I was in the village, my mother's younger brother of the same father and mother was a policeman in the then Gongola state. I know that he was in Gongola, and I know that he was in a place called Mararaba Bayelsa, but I have no address, and I don't know the place. But because of the kind of circumstances I found myself with my elder brother, everything and anything that I did was an offense. And so on the 31st of May, 1980, he got his salary. And he had terribly beaten hell out of me, even at that age. But in order to pacify me, he gave me his salary to hold, which was about 40 naira. So when he went to Kotagad, I decided that, look, if I remain in that Enugu,
He will kill you.
I was going to die. So I stole 20 naira out of 40 naira and wrote a note and left for him that I have gone. Should not look for me, shouldn't bother to look for me. Yeah, you won't know where I was. So I went to a garage in Enugu, enter a vehicle from Enugu to Makurdi, I think for 2 kobo. Then from Enugu to Kasinala, Makodi to Kasinala. Then from Kasinala to Taku. And on getting to Taku, God so organized that my cousin, Emmanuel Ibunu Ucheni, was schooling in government secondary school in Taku. And then he was coming to the road and I saw him. So we embraced ourselves. And he asked me, what happened? I explained, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Maraba Baesa to go and meet my uncle. So he said, if I enter vehicle, the moment I got to Maraba Baesa, I will see police station, and then I will ask of Sergeant Abraham Ibunuwani, then I will see him. That's how I entered motor. Then Nigeria was good. So I got to the place. And on getting to his place, God so kind, I saw my uncle. And that was a place where I was treated humanely. My late uncle took me in. I started rearing his fowl. He was rearing chicken and all of that. So I stayed with him. And then he decided that I must go to school because the man loved school. So when, at that time, community secondary school were established. So they came to Maraba Baesa to get people from Benue to go to recruit, admit, but we needed to write common entrance examination. I wrote and I was told I failed. So my uncle then said, look, the best thing, he would speak to his friend, late Umoru Fonga, who was the headmaster of Takum local government primary school, to enable me write my first school leaving certificate. And that if I did well, then I can then use that to go to school in a normal other school. So, and late Umoru Fonga agreed. I was registered and I wrote my first school leaving certificate, and I took second, and the other somebody took first, beat me to it. I had 266, that person had 265. So that was how in April 1980 I got my first school leaving certificate, sitting at home. So now my mother, my father, my brother, they didn't know where I was. It was not a time of telephone.
Yes.
There is nobody you either have to go to post office. So I now agree with my uncle that since my parents were worried, he should allow me, now that I have my first school leaving certificate, I will go home and go to teachers college. So my uncle agreed. So on my way, I saw an advertorial in the Voice newspaper then, asking people to apply for fire service if you have a school leaving certificate. So I did apply. And then I got home. And then I was welcomed by my parents like a prodigal son that I was. Meanwhile, my immediate younger brother of the same parents, Okutepa, was being brought up by my aunt, my father's sister. And that my father's sister allowed Omika to go to school. So Omika had finished primary 1 and primary 6 and passed to St. Peter's College in Ida in 1980. But my parents didn't have money to pay for him to go to school. So, well, and God so kind, when I came back, before I ran away, I was doing farming competition where I would be paid. So my turn came and they gave the money to my father. And my father kept the money and refused to use it because he didn't know where his son was. I was not happy. So when I came, he embraced me and he calls me on my, I don't know why, on my, his elder brother or sister. So say on my, all I like, welcome and all of that. See your contribution money, 250 naira. I say you should hold it. So when my younger brother passed and at the time I came back, my father said he didn't have money. Something happened, and when God wants to help you, he may use something that looks like insulting as a stepping stone. So in that village, we had a man that was a big man, in quote. His son did not pass, but my brother passed. So instead of saying, oh, let me assist to pay the school fees of my brother, he now met my dad and said my dad should be allowed to sell my younger brother's admission to him so that his son will go and bear my brother's name and go to school. And my father was such an emotional man. I could see tears dropping his eyes. So, and that's okay. I didn't talk because at our time, when adults are talking,
yes,
you don't put your mouth. You dare not say so. So I recalled that when he left, and I do not want to mention him, I met my dad in the morning because we normally discuss in the morning. Say, Baba, what happened? He explained to me. I said, okay, I have an idea. So what is the idea? Say, if you allow me, I will go to Makurdi, join police. Because at 1980, I was already 20 years plus. If I join police, I will receive salary. Then I will be able to pay my younger brother's school fees to go to school. And then my money that you showed me, we can use it to buy bucket. And so the old man said I should kneel down. And then he prayed for me and said all manner of things. One of which I remembered is that I was going to be a renowned name, that people will come from left, right, and center and take refuge under my shelter. I was going to be a problem solver. I was going to be known all over. And because I did not allow shame to catch him, shame will be far from me. And I say amen. And so he blessed me and permitted me to leave his compound. And I left my father's compound on the 1st of October, 1980 to Makurdi. And then stayed with my cousin, who was a nurse, Ajine Ikanepu. The mother of Ajine and my mother are the same father and mother. He was married. The husband was a nurse. She was a nurse. They were in Makurdi. So they accommodated me. So I eventually got recruited into the Nigerian police, but I did not go for training for reasons that is too long to explain. But long story short, I did not know that the person who recruited us was looking for bribe from me and told me that if we went to Maiduguri for training, I was going to be posted under tailoring department and I would graduate as police tailor. So my own idea of policing was a police officer that will enforce law and order, not a policeman that tailoring.
So in uniform.
So I now asked the man to remove my name. I'm not going. And I ended up not going to the police. So eventually ended up in the fire service. I became fireman, got trained. Then I was still desirous of reading. And I started having small money, sent home, my brother would. So by 1981, I saw question paper in November, December, GCE, in English language, economics, government, Christian religious studies, commerce, and economics. And the questions were so cheap because I was an adept reader. I go to library, I read economics, I read commerce, I read all the secondary school textbooks. I was reading it, even though I didn't go. So when I saw those questions and I could answer it, I said, if this is how this thing is cheap, then I will register for it. So then in December 1982, I registered for 5 papers: government, Christian religious studies, economics, commerce, and English language. So, and I sat for that examination, December 1982. And when the result came, and I had 5 papers at one sitting. So before my younger brother could finish his Form 2, I already had my GC in my hand. So long story short, he graduated in 1985. So, and then before then, I had already gotten married, had a child, my first child, who is a lawyer. So, it was that my GC, external, or O-level, December 1982, that I got admission to School of Basic Studies in 1985 for 2 years. And like I shared with my colleagues in the morning, the first formal examination that I wrote in the School of Basic Studies, not examination, test, was in economics. And my lecturer was Moses Haji. And I had 0 over 10. And the man was a good man, but tough in my estimation then, bad in my estimation then, but I owe every thanks to Moses Haji. He marked the paper and came to the class and said, "Who is Jibril Samuel Okutepa?" Say, "I'm the one." They stand up. And they went to the blackboard, drew my head, and wrote something like this: "Big for nothing head. Your answer is full of rigmarole." I thought the man was wicked, but that was the lubricant, the energy that propelled me to ask myself questions, because I took myself to school. Nobody took me to school. I took myself to school. No human being, whether living or dead, pay my school fees. So, what did I do? I decided to go to, for those who know Makurdi and you know School of Basic Studies, on your way to University of Agriculture, now Joseph Sanwat, Joseph Taka, University of Agriculture, there was a secondary school, science secondary school. So I went to that school, put my head on the wall, and I cried. So I could find myself very deficient in every material particular. But I had a determination that this lecturer will not abuse me again. So I went home that day, drove my usual taxi, made sufficient money, went to Daily Bookshop, bought all manner of economic textbooks, O.A. Lawal, Samuelson on economics, and all of them. And then I locked myself in the room, read them page to page, from page to page, and then I'll cover it and start giving myself examination tests, and I would answer it without reading it from the understanding. So the next economic textbook by the same Moses Haji, I had 10 over 10. So I became student teacher. Most of my colleagues that were younger ones were coming to me to learn. So eventually, I graduated from School of Basic Studies in 1987 with 11 points. The highest point that year was 12. My colleague, late T.D. Aka, who ended up becoming a lawyer and died, had 12 points. I had 11. So I eventually found myself in the University of Jos. But getting admission to University of Jos was not without a challenge. God bless Professor Michael Adekunle, whom God used to solve my admission problem. Because I had my cousin's husband, late Prince Benjamin Dashaba, of blessed memory. My sister cousin is also late. Had a friend who was in University of Jos, say I should come, the admission is already ready. So I entered train from Makurdi because I didn't have money to enter regular car. Then train used to move from Makurdi to Jos, and then from Jos to Kano and all of that. So I boarded a train, and the train got spoiled, and I spent 3 days between Makurdi and Gudi. So I eventually, in November 1987, I have to trek to the Gudi Junction and then enter 911 to Jos. So I got to Jos, and then my name was nowhere to be found on admission list.
Same admission list that promised you was ready.
It was ready. And it took me 5 consecutive days. I couldn't see the admission officer. One, Mr. Francis Adaji. 5 good days. There was nothing I never did, including writing and dropping under the door. But one moment, I took my destiny in my hand, and scripture cannot be broken. Then I didn't understand the scripture. But it says that right from the time of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and only violent men will take it by force. So what did I need to do? 5 days, no admission. And my money was getting exhausted. And I had planned that I was going to. So I went to a place called Katako to buy coat, not suit. There's a difference between coat and suit. So I buy my coat, buy my black coat and trouser with white shirt in preparation for me to go to the Vice Chancellor's office to demonstrate what I learned and know in government, fundamental rights. So I got to the VC's office, very large place, and then were under military, members of the Armed Forces Ruling Council, big men. And I entered the office and I said, I cannot be discriminated against. What sort of country is that? I had 11 points. I know of somebody from the other part of the north who had less than this. His name is on admission list. This one from this. I've mastered the list of the number, serial number on my head. I started making noise. And then the DVC then, Professor Michael Adekunle, just opened the door and said, come, young man, what is the problem? I had my credential in my hand. And I said, sir, I'm being discriminated against because I was told I have admission and I am here. I can't see my name. I can't be registered. And the admission officer is not attending to me. So no, calm down, calm down. So he held me under his armpit, straight to his office, took his intercom and called Mr. Francis Adaji. There's a young man here from Benue. He's duly qualified to be admitted under locality, under something quota system. And he's not, he said, no, nobody had drew his attention to it. And I said, no, sir, it's not correct. I have my evidence. He said, no, calm down, calm down. So Professor Adekunle now gave me his security and then got there. So Mr. Adaji flipped through, couldn't see my name. He now gave me a note to Mrs. Adejumo, the admission officer. Kindly admit Okutepa J.S. He is duly qualified to be admitted under locality quota system and signed 27 November 1987. I have copy. So I went and photocopy about 50 of that something. I have copy till tomorrow. So I met Mrs. Adejumo. I was registered and I started my university journey. And God was with me. In fact, in the master's program I was intending to do, I saw my transcripts. I've never scored below a B1. It's either A or B, A or B. And so, by the grace of God, I wrote my final exam, graduated from University of Jos, and I had second class lower. It would have been second class upper. Unfortunately, during the time of my exam, as a result of poor feeding and malnutrition, I was struck by malaria and typhoid. So when I saw my transcript, I had 59 point something. Nobody rounded it up for me to get second class upper. Because I earned it, nobody helped me write. So I left University of Jos, went to the Nigerian Law School, 1991, was called to Nigerian Bar, December 10th, 1991. My first appearance in court, because I was over age, I didn't serve, so I have my exemption certificate, was before my Lord, late Honorable Justice Emmanuel Ogbole, High Court number 3, 19th of December, 1991. And the first casualty, in quotes, and victim that I wanted to stop, based on theory of law, was Professor Agbo Johnson Madaki, who later on turned not only a friend, but a brother, and who thought that I had already practiced law for about 7 years. And I said, no, this was my first time. So he took me out, bought me food. 19th of December, we became friends, and we're still friends till today. So, and I purposed in my heart that I will not cross over to any other place. I will remain in private practice because, like Job said, I had always believed that the cause I know not, I will bear it. I wanted to be eye to the blind, and those who have people oppressing them, I will stand for them. So that was my desire. And so I didn't want to cross over to anything but to remain a practicing lawyer. And I consistently remain a lawyer. I've traversed every nook and cranny of this country in search of legal practice. The only state I have never driven to by using my jalopy then was Birnin-Kebbi. Otherwise, there is no state in Nigeria that I've never driven to in the search of legal practice, and all in the quest for promoting the nobility of the profession through Nigerian Bar Association. And so, by the grace of God, I was found worthy in knowledge and character and in learning. And on the 7th of July, 2011, the Legal Practitioner Privileges Committee of the Honorable Body of Benchers announced my name as one of the legal practitioners that I was awarded the rank that year. And at our time, we were not more than 15. So they combined 2010 and 2011. That was how we were 30 that were sworn in by the Honorable the Chief Justice of Nigeria, individually, not a joint oath, on the 26th of August, 2011, the very day that the UN house was bombed in this Abuja. So far so good. That has been the story of my life. But let me quickly add that That my younger brother ended up becoming a chartered accountant. He and his wife, the very year that I became SAN, that was the very year he and his wife were also found worthy by ICANN to be made chartered accountant. Today is a fellow of ICANN. I don't know how they call it.
Yes.
So far so good. That is an abridged version of the story of my life.
Sorry. It's an inspiring story. Extremely inspiring story. I can't believe a lot of young people in this country who've passed through just 10% of what you passed through and couldn't continue as you did. First of all, I have to tell you from the best part of my heart that you inspire me and you inspire generation. You inspire a lot of people. Millions of those who are watching us now are going to be inspired by this story. Thank you so much for your dedication and your resilience. But I just want to make very quick, I want to ask a very quick question. When you talked about getting admission into the university, you didn't say you were given admission to study law. So did you read law in the university or was
yes,
there another
I applied to read law when I was filling my form. And let me add this one. And in all honesty, in 1987 rather, when I was filling form for admission to university, yours sincerely did not know who a lawyer was. That was how illiterate, how, permit me the use of this word, how stupid and innocent and blank I was. But something in me said, put law, University of choice, University of just, second choice, University of just, third choice, University of just, first choice, law, second choice, law, third choice, law. And so I applied to read law. And I was admitted to read law. And let me say, at least Mr. Adagi, if he's anywhere listening to me, will think that I heap the blame on him. It was not his fault. It was a fault of an organization called JAM, who did not forward my name to JOS. As a matter of fact, it was when because I was giving direct entry, it was when I was in 300 level that JAM reluctantly sent my name to University of JOS. Perhaps based on the incompetence and administrative bureaucracy of Nigerian system. So when you see Nigerian system in this geometric deterioration, it didn't start today. It is the wound that we have been managing that has turned gangrous, that we are seeing the state of rottenness in our system today. So, but because I was qualified and I was entitled, because Benue then, JOS, fell under what they call catchment area. And my result was even a result that I could have been given admission on the basis of merit. But the window that Mr. Adagi had and the power that he had was now to give me that admission on the basis of locality quota system. So it was eventually, when I was in 300 level, because it was direct entry, I started 200, 300, and ended up at 400, 3 years at our time. So I applied to read law, and law I was given. And when I was in the faculty, it was then that I first of all know who a lawyer was and what law
it's all about.
And I became interested. And in that university, I had a lot of people who came to my aid. Somebody like Professor G.T. Tripathi He was an Indian. Because while I was in the university, I was driving taxi to get money to eat. I was a driver of FCS, Fellowship of Christian Students. Pastor Dr. Paul Enenche and his wife were in the medicine faculty of medicine then. So we all started, and God bless him. God bless his family. So I was an expert. I was a taxi, because one other part of my life is that I was a taxi driver. I used to, when I was in SBS, I would come home, and then the man who used to give me his vehicle to use as taxi is Mr. Nathaniel Edoko. He's still alive. He's in Lokoja. So I am what I am by the grace of God, not by dint of anything that I have done extraordinary. So that's why I say in the beginning that the map of our destiny is in the hands of God. I believe God knows what I'm going to be tomorrow. But all I need to do to tell the generation of today is to walk your destiny with your hands. And I can say it with all sense of responsibility that I had uncles who were wealthy. I did not put my attention on their wealth or beg them to give me money. The only person who had assisted me to give me accommodation was this, my cousin. And while I was there, I was not depending on her or the husband. I work with my hand. That's why God says that whatever you find your hands to do
it very well.
Do it well, and He will bless it.
Yes.
So I picked law, and lawyer I wanted to be, and lawyer I am. And lawyer I will remain, I think, until my time on earth is up, in fullness of age.
Congratulations, sir. I read that the tribal mark on your face
was given to me in 1968.
Yes, so as to identify you.
Yes, because then most Igala people have tribal mark, but I didn't have. And in 1968 was during war. You know, the war ended up in 1970. And it was reason that those without tribal mark are Igbos. So you could be arrested and slaughtered on the basis of not having a mark. So my foster father, Baba Abdul, I came back from farm then. I was 8 years. And unlike this generation, that somebody is 15 years, is waking up by 10 o'clock. Who born monkey that you say you'll be sleeping? So I came back and they said, oh, look, we are giving you mark now. Try. And then guess what they used to gum their face? Sycamore tree. Already made it and then put it like that. So it remained there for 3 days and the thing dry and remove it. So that's why I have the mark. I know when they gave me, there was no anesthesia to give you so that it won't pay you. It will have to pay you. And you have to enjoy it. And there was nothing like tetanus. So that's what some of us pass through. And they call it old school. But that old school is better. Like I said to my colleagues in chambers, God is ancient of days. Since the creation of the world from Adam till today, have you seen a man or a woman with eye at the back? So when we chose to do things negatively in the name of modernity without showing respect for the creation, it worries me.
And this leads me to the next question. I read that your first law firm, you named it Grace of God Chambers because you didn't have money and somebody gave you an office for free. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. And may God bless the soul of His Lordship, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Shaibu Atodoga. Now, I had practiced law with two principals. Mrs. Francis Ebofameneza her husband, God rest the soul of Matthew Ukwenezan. It's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it.
Yes, sir.
So when I was to go to school of basic studies, or when I had gone to school of basic studies, I went on study leave without pay. And I was suffering. And so I had applied for a review. And then the person that was posted to my Ministry of Internal Affairs as staff officer was late Matthew Ukwenezan. When he saw my application, read my file, and saw that a man who came to Benue 1st October 1980, by November, December 1982, now had GC ordinary level, 5 papers at one sitting, a bloody primarian who didn't even do primary school well. The man purposed in his heart that he will help me. And so he helped me. That's the story of another day. But the only legacy I can give to him was to name my library after him. He was brutally assassinated by wicked men, or I don't know whoever they are, wicked people, and he did not enjoy me. So I ended up practicing with his wife. Then I left his wife to join E.A. Haruna, whose wife is also a high court judge. But when I was with Haruna, I was doing all the work, and I knew that if I branch on my own, I will be able to sustain myself. Because all it takes to sustain yourself is courage, determination, and courage or conviction that you can do it well. So I discussed with my second principal, E.A. Haruna, and he agreed with me that I can branch out. And so I resigned on the 31st of May, 1993. So I began to look for accommodation before then. So I had a discussion with a senior colleague, he was Ahile. And he said, no, you had a story that Justice then Mr. Ibrahim Shaibu Atadoga was living for Benue, Kogi, and that he had an office at number 51 Railway Bypass. He's looking for who to hand over the place to. So, and I said, okay, he connected me to Mr. Ibrahim Shaibu Atadoga then, who later became a judge of Customary Court of Appeal and president of Customary Court of Appeal of Kogi State, and he's late now, agreed to give me that office. And so I started my law firm on my own without being under any principal on a day that people think generally regarded as April Fool. So I started my law firm on the 1st of April, 1993. And the total money I had, home and abroad, bank and everywhere, was just 50 kobo. And the man said I could use that office for 1 year without paying rent, but I will be doing the cases he was going to leave behind. And so when I sat down under a tree, incidentally, my wife would tell me under mango tree. When I sat down under the mango tree in that place, and I said, what name do I give to this office that I had at a prime location on the road without paying a dime and for 1 year? And I say it could only be God's grace. And so my law firm is Grace of God Chambers. Because I am what I am by the grace of God. I got the office by the grace of God. If not God's grace, the rent at that material time was about, I can't remember exactly, but nothing below 1,000 per annum. So I got it rent-free for 1 year. And I began to work and started. Sometimes my companion in the office were Guguru and Frade, and I would trek. And I learned not to come to the office late. I will resume 7:30, leave trek from my office by 8 o'clock to the High Court or to the customary area court, because we were taught from law school that you must be in court 30 minutes before the judge sits. The reason is simple. You need to do one or two things, find out if processes have been served, if there are proofs of evidence, the proof of service against your opponent, or some other things you need to tidy up before the judge sits.
Prepare yourself.
You prepare yourself, and not to rush to court when the judge is sitting. So up to and including now, that's my standard of practice. So when I see some judges sitting 10, 11, it worries me, because the finest of tradition of legal practice was bestowed on me under the finest of judiciary in Benue State, led by late Justice Alasan Idoko. And then you had fine judges that tolerate no darkness or permit appearance of improprieties. When you talk about judges like late Alasan Idoko, Honorable Justice Aboye John Ikongbe, or you talk about the finest of them, some of these other finest brain. You talk about Justice Anyebe, my Lord Justice James Ogebe, who ended up in the Supreme Court. You talk about my Lord, you heard the story of some people like Justice Onu, who ended up in the Supreme Court of blessed memory. So when you practice in Benue in those days, and with senior members of the bar, like B.I. Home, Bernard Home, SAN, talk about Chief Asheka, Chief Morgan Ogbole, B. Bembe, and Chief Joe Maku, and all of those fine Chief Mama Mike Osman, and my principals, you are happy to be a lawyer. There was no corner cutting.
All right. We are going to get into the law part of this conversation. I'm sure I could see the pride with which you speak about it, and we can't wait to hear more about it.
If I have opportunity of coming back again,
yeah,
I will be a lawyer.
Oh, great. You've repeatedly mentioned the grace of God. You've said here that it's by the grace of God that you are who you are today. Now, somebody listening to you would ask, why is it that this God shows his grace and mercies and kindness for some people like you, and not show it to other people? Is there a special reason why God shows this grace to some people and not show it to other people?
I think grace of God is available to all. It's just a matter of his favor. Everybody has his grace, but I don't know whether some of us have been specially singled out by God to be favored. I don't know. Otherwise, I am the least to be who I am today.
Do you think God is a partial God?
I don't think he is, because his ways are not our ways. What you call partiality may not be partiality with God. So it will be a tragedy of great proportion for me to say God is a partial God. God is not partial. He's not a partial God. God is a God of all. How he distributes his grace and favor is within the purviews of his understanding. And so, but I am the most favor of God. If you call it partiality by your understanding, that is your business. But God favors me.
Now, I have been wondering.
If God didn't favor me, I should have been a stillbirth.
Yeah.
And so he said, before I formed thee, I know thee.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew everything about us. And who am I to question his knowledge of me or his knowledge of you? So that's why he is so omnipotent, omniscience. It's all sufficiency.
An undescribable God.
Good.
You were born into a Muslim family, is that correct?
Absolutely.
How
correct.
did you become a Christian?
I do not know. I just found myself deciding to go to church. And it's a story that is also in my book because when I was leaving home, apart from coming from a Muslim background, I was also born into a background of both African tradition. And so I was given something that looks like soap to bath so that I can have what Hausa people call ferijini, good luck. And it will interest you to note that when I took my bath with that soap, fire service did not give me employment.
Where you were expecting employment?
The name that came out was Jibrin, but not Okutepa. That's another story. So I ended up not joining my colleagues in training until December of 1980, when they have already started their training from October. 2 months I was at home until one morning, without the knowledge of my cousin. And I found myself, in fact, I had applied for what they call medical record attendance, to be carrying card from one end of the world to the other. I was not given. So one morning I just woke up and I said, if this soap had given me ferijini or good luck, I should have been in the fire service. Here I was. Police, I ended up not going. Fire service, they have not called me. What do they call it? Medical record attendance.
They did not give you.
They did not give me. So I went and threw away the thing. Then 1 week, 3 days after that, they called me to come and resume work in fire service.
After you threw away the soap?
Yes. So that's why I told you that God knew my end from the beginning. And there was none of this thing that was being done by me consciously knowing God.
That makes sense.
So it was much later that I now discovered, I said, there is a being called God, and it is found in the church. So I started going to church. And that's how I became a Christian. That's why in my family today, apart from myself, my younger brother, my other younger sister, until much later than my senior sister now had seen the light and joined, we were 6, 3 Christian, 3 Muslim. So when people are quarreling and fighting that this one is a Muslim, this one is this one, and they are killing people, I ask questions. If they were their brothers and sisters, would they kill? So I do not know how I became Christian, other than the story I've told you.
You know, you are in the right position to talk about some of the allegations that has been made against Muslims and Christians in this country. We've heard that there's a premeditated agenda to Islamize the country, and then that there is a Christian genocide in the country. Do you think that is correct?
It may be correct, it may not be correct. It depends on the perception. But let me tell you that when you look at gentility and violence, they are products of misunderstanding of the holy books. Because Islam, by my understanding, is a religion of peace. It's not a religion, and I can tell you with profound respect that not many Muslims that are claiming to be Muslim can practice the pure law of Islam. If there were, the kind of humongous stealing going on by people who are Muslim and even Christian, Nigeria would have been a Dorado. There is no one in Nigeria today that put on his head and carry placard that is a traditional worshiper. Point at one, except few. We are either Christian or Muslims. And we carry Bible and Quran and pick the Bible and the Quran. The only difference between Islam and Christianity is in Jesus Christ. Islam believe in Jesus, but they don't believe he's the Son of God. They believe he's a prophet. So they believe his resurrection. So, and when you go to historical, ecclesiastical history, who gives birth to Islam? And who gave birth to Christianity? Abraham, Ishmael, and
Abraham,
Jacob, and Ishmael. So when you trace the Genesis well, they are all joined here with Father Abraham. And so, what is the basis of ram being slaughtered? Abraham was asked to carry his son Isaac to sacrifice. And God provided. Say, Father, where are we going? Where is this thing? Say, God shall provide. So when you pick Quran and Bible, there are meeting points. So why are we killing ourselves? So there are signs by some politicians who do not want Christianity to survive. For instance, in some states, no Christians, however eminently qualified, can be governor. Yet, Nigeria is said to be a secular state. I had said, and I'm saying it here, that any government that sponsored pilgrimage for Christian or Muslim is committing constitutional sacrilege. Because the Constitution prohibits state religion. And they say Nigeria is a secular state. But because we are in a country where there are no consequences for misconduct, people engage in unpardonable misconduct that has led us to where we are today. So in this country, both the Christians and Muslims are united in one common denominator. Majority of them in power. Steal, continue to steal, and overlook the welfare and well-being of Nigerian people. That's why Chapter 3 of Nigerian Constitution, which is the lofty idea of state policy, is not justiciable, and we have refused to make it justiciable for the good and betterment of Nigerian people. Otherwise, since I grew up applying the road from Abuja to Lokoja, that road is under perpetual construction.
I swear.
The one from here to Kaduna is under perpetual construction. There was a time they said they were repairing Abuja Airport. They said they tarred that road. Was it tar or charcoal? Is that road motorable now? Will you find that? So when I put my head together and people die in accidents as a result of iniquities of governmental officials in not using the money for what it meant, in my view, a progressive-minded judicial institution should interpret that accident as a violation of a right to life. Because the right to life is a fundamental right. Right to eat food is a fundamental right, because if you don't have food to eat, you will die. Right to get good, affordable, and potable, pure, good water not a sachet water. It's a fundamental right, because if you don't have good water to drink and you have contaminated cholera water, it kills, will you not?
Of course.
So if a man or a woman goes to the hospital and the hospital still remain a mere consulting clinic, as was said by late General Muhammad Buhari on the 31st of December 1983, are we still not mere consulting clinic today? Is the failure of government to provide us with good hospital health care facilities not a justiciable breach of fundamental rights? But because the boldness, the courage that is required of the bench to checkmate the rascalities of executive and executive lawlessness and legislative blunder is not there. If it's there, executive will sit up. So my view is whether Islam or Christian, the government funding of it, or people killing themselves as a result of this religion, is willfully encouraged for political advantage, not in the interest of God. Because no man or woman has capacity to fight a battle for God. He's the only one that can drop coronavirus, and everywhere he can use it.
Do you think the judiciary has been captured by politicians?
It appears to be so, or it appears to have allowed itself to be captured. Whichever is the case is unfortunate. Either it is captured or it has allowed itself to be captured. In my view, it has allowed itself to be captured, because the judiciary, in my view, is the strongest arm of government. But where the strongest arm of government refuse to use the enormous power vested in it by the Constitution, do you know that it's only the judicial arm of government that has been given constitutional mandate to decree that somebody should die? President Tinubu cannot ask anybody to be killed. It will be unlawful killing. But he can only be given license by the judiciary to say somebody should be killed. And then the governor will then sign the warrant of execution. No governor can wake up to begin to sign warrant of execution of a Nigerian citizen without judicial imperial authority. So judiciary in section 6 of the Nigerian Constitution has been given the power to decide that a man is a woman is a man. It's the failure to use this power in the overall interest of the masses of this country that turns Nigeria to a begging nation. In my view, if judiciary decide that democracy will work, it will work. No politician will rig election. But where a politician believes that he can carry ballot paper, he can bypass Viva's machine, and a roadblock in the name of principles of law is laid in sabotage of the sovereignty of the people, and the people decision matters not in the sight of the judiciary by the funny principles of law laid in caricature adjudication, then democracy will suffer a shipwreck. And that's where we are. That's why people who are facing criminal trial with humongous amount of money stolen from the state treasury are being cleared to contest for Senate. It can only happen in Nigeria, where people who have baggages on their head are making laws for you. What do you expect? Which law will they make that will not be in the interest of themselves? That's why most of our laws are made for man and to protect the interests of man, not the interests of the people.
I've interviewed a lawyer here before, and when this issue came up, his defense, or one of the things he mentioned, was that the judiciary can only interpret the law, that it is the responsibility of the executive to enforce laws. And in Nigeria, the judiciary seem to have continuously given laws that are not enforced by the executive. So if the judiciary interpret the law and the executive fails to enforce it, what happens in such a situation?
I agree with you to him to a larger extent. But where a judicial decision patronize those with dirty hands, how do you expect those dirty hands to enforce the decision of the judiciary they know is contaminated? So the judiciary need to build trusts in itself. Once upon a time, the Nigerian judiciary spoke in favor of the rule of law. If you are a lawyer, go and read Chief Chukwuemeka Odumegwu against the governor of Lagos State. That decision was under military. Ojukwu went to court. There was ex parte order restraining Lagos State government from doing something. They ignored it. And when the matter came before the Supreme Court, my Lord Justice Kayode Esho went to town, whether in wartime or in civil time. The rule of law speaks one language. Obedience to the rule of law is non-negotiable in any democratic society, even in the military era. And His Lordship reasoned rightly, in my view, that when military came to power, they abolished the legislative arm of government, but they didn't abolish the judiciary. And so the judiciary is as old as Nigeria. So the issue is about interpretation that appears to be skewed in favor of impurity. And so when a man who does not have certificate, who had forged certificate, and there is evidence of it, is allowed to remain in power on the basis of an interpretation that suggests that you have come late. Or when a court sees that the judiciary is suffering and some persons have come to court to say you cannot appoint half-baked human being, and the judiciary describe those lawyers who come to court as meddlesome interloper, you know what that means?
Yes.
Busybody. Those who have nothing to do. And you say, just a judiciary is biting. The judiciary that must be respected must not only back, it must bite. And they have the power to say, if you refuse to obey my order, I will not hear you. Why do we begin to make excuses and creating loopholes and exceptions for some iniquities? Have you ever seen anybody who is enjoying himself in iniquity wanting to leave? Except he's visited by Holy Spirit.
How deep do you think the corruption in this current administration runs?
It's not only this administration. Corruption has been there. Like I said, we have been tolerating most intolerable behavior in the name of management. We manage it. Nigeria should not be disintegrated. Well, let us do this, And the show is getting so gangerous that the system requires amputation. Where do you go in Nigeria today that the system is not corruption prone? Where? If you are living here now, on your way to town, you see people driving against traffic. have you not been seen in this Abuja that some security agencies are standing on the road collecting money in the broad daylight? Is there no law prohibiting them doing so? There is. So if the people that are supposed to do what they needed to do refuse to do what they need to do, Nigeria cannot survive. Nigeria is an artificial entity. So people need to work to make Nigeria great. And in my view, the greatest enemies of Nigeria are Nigerians. Just like I said, the greatest enemy of this country is the legal profession. Because we have been given yam and knife. We are the only profession that the Constitution deliberately gave to us free of charge, an arm of government. You can hardly find any person who is on the bench that the only qualification he or she has, is secondary school or its equivalent. And you know the definition of secondary school or its equivalent in the Constitution, Section 318, ability to read or write, or any other qualification acceptable to INEC, including conferences and seminars. If INEC says somebody who didn't see 4 walls of school, who can read and write, or who cannot even read and write, but is sufficiently matured to be president of Nigeria, he doesn't need to have primary school certificate. But that is not the case of the judiciary. You cannot be a judge of the High Court unless you are a legal practitioner who has practiced law for not less than 10 years. You must have your LLB and then go on to law school, call to Nigerian Bar, enroll in the Supreme Court as barristers and solicitors. In the Court of Appeal, you can't be a justice of the Court of Appeal except you are a lawyer who has practiced law for not less than 12 years. And the same thing in the Supreme Court. You cannot be a justice of Supreme Court unless you have practiced law for 15 years. So the qualification of the legal profession in the judicial department of Nigerian government is not secondary school or its equivalent. So going through what I have gone through hell to be where I am today, why should I be tempted by somebody whose only qualification to be in power is secondary school or its equivalent? And then be subservient to such a branch of government when I am the light, and where my appearance is, darkness takes away. So why can't I therefore be a light in that society and darkness flee away for people to see and economy become buoyant? So, in my view, the judiciary should blame itself for not exercising the God-given power that it has, because it can tell the executive that you are not elected, and that executive goes. Take, for instance, during President Olusegun Obasanjo, impeachment were being done in brothel. It took the Supreme Court boldness, starting from Justice James Okutepa at the Court of Appeal, to say that despite Section 180 of the Constitution, subsection 10 that says impeachment is not justiciable in court, it took their lordship's ingenuity and nationalistic interpretation of the Constitution to say that before you can say a governor is removed and is not justiciable, you must show that Section 180, subsection 1 to 9 have been complied with, and that the failure to comply with any of those sections makes impeachment justiciable. Before then, impeachment was not justiciable. So it takes a courageous bench to checkmate rascally minded executive or legislature. What we need is courage, determination. And that's why my Lord, late Justice Nikki Toby warned that judges should avoid mingling with politicians. And you know the reason. The code of conduct for judicial officers is impartiality, avoidance of impropriety, appearance of it. The code of conduct for politicians is impurity. Anything goes that give them power, including snatching ballot papers, including forging whatever they needed to forge to be in power. But the code of conduct of the legal profession does not tolerate such things. And so it's our duty to enforce purity in this society. And it is our failure to so enforce purity that is creating the kind of problem we have in this country. Who gave the interpretation that a supreme witness should have a witness statement front-loaded? Was that in aid of justice or in aid of injustice? In my respectful view, that principle was in aid of injustice. Indeed, it created a roadblock mixed with concrete for attainment of justice. Because in electoral jurisprudence, if there's anywhere technicality should be avoided, it is in electoral jurisprudence. Because it is not only the right of the parties before the court that is on trial, but the sovereignty of the people to elect those who are to freely rule them. That is why, because the Nigerian politicians now know that whatever sheet they give to us, the judiciary will, under anachronistic legal jargon, rubber stamp it. That's why they are doing what they are doing.
You are the lead counsel in the ADC case. What is the background of that story, and what is the part that politicians, the ruling government, is playing in that case, and what is the part that the judiciary has played?
I do not have the power of clairvoyance, so I don't know what they do. I don't belong to them. But I wasn't the lead counsel to ADC. I was the lead counsel to Senator David Mark.
Yes.
The national...
Pardon me. Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
That is correct. The lead counsel to David Mark.
And at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court agreed with me, partly. Because if you know, I wasn't their lawyer in the trial court or the Court of Appeal. But at the Court of Appeal made an order that was gratuitous. And it is a principles of law of considerable antiquity that our courts are not Father Christmas to give to a party what they did not ask. So the Court of Appeal made a gratuitous order of maintenance of status quo ante bellum, which was interpreted by INEC to mean what he thought it was. And that led to the problem that ADC and Senator Mark, as its national chairman, had. And I was brought in that matter by one of the well-respected Nigerian politician. And I led the legal team to argue rightly, in my view, that the order made by the Court of Appeal was made without jurisdiction. And the Supreme Court agreed with me, although some other aspect of the decision, the Court of Appeal decision, was affirmed. Because if I had if I had the privilege of being the lawyer from the beginning, I wouldn't have gone on appeal. But that's a story for another day. So to correct, but as to whether the current government is trying to destroy opposition or not, only the politician can say. After all, in my view, both the current government and the opposition politicians have not done well, in my view. And in my view, there is no difference between Nigerian political parties. The only difference, in my humble view, is that one was in power, one is now in power. The lots of Nigeria have not been bettered. If it has, please just tell me. So, and tell me who is in the current government that was not in the political party that they are condemning. Most of the people that are now talking about APC, were they not in PDP? Were they not? Show me which politician prominent in this APC government was not in PDP. So when they are singing song that PDP destroy Nigeria, who is PDP?
People, the same people.
Who is PDP? So my view is that the problem of Nigeria is not the political party. The problem of Nigeria is Nigerian politicians of all the political parties. And until we are able to hold them accountable for the iniquities of governance, we'll keep blaming political party. I heard one yesterday telling people in Kogi East, it is not the senatorial candidate that is on the ballot. I am on the ballot. Meanwhile, he's supposed to be a senatorial candidate in another senatorial zone. And you want me to be happy hearing people like that? The problem is not the party. The problem is the politician. And until we give the Lee Kuan Yew treatments in Nigeria, where if you have read the book from third world to first world, he said, we refuse to compromise. Nigeria is a country of compromises. Nigeria is a country where impunity reigns to the high heaven. And justice is crying from his grave, looking for who to help it serve Nigerian people. Impunity, lack of consequences have produced a monstrous monster called corruption. And that's why we are where we are today. That somebody will see you on the road, is driving wrongly, violating the traffic rules and regulations of this country, and is doing waka. That's why in the legal profession, NBA election can be rigged. And the person who is rigged and put in power will be speaking jargons English on television. Until we agree that what is wrong, and stop giving baptismal name of right to wrongs, nothing will work. That's our problem. And unfortunately, these things called impunity, corruption, is even creeping in geometrical proportion into ecclesiastical cycle. You know what I mean?
You know, I was going to ask you about NBA, the recently concluded election of...
recently coronation.
You've made it clear that you've lost faith in the NBA.
And I'm out of it, out of NBA activities.
Now, my question is, if such an organization that Nigerians sees as a body made up of soldiers of the law, those who have been painstakingly trained to defend the law, if such an organization cannot even conduct an election that is transparent to everyone, should we as common Nigerians still trust that such an organization should lead the war against corruption in this country?
What is your answer? Because you know the answer. You know the answer. Your inherent in this, your question, is you have lost faith in the association called NBA, which motto is promoting the rule of law. And that is the major motto of NBA. And where there is a rule of law, the rule of self-help does not operate. Where there is a rule of law, nobody is above the law. Where there is a rule of law, things must be done in accordance with the law. And laws are substantive and procedural. In a democratic setting, procedural process leading to election is much more important than even the election. That's why in conventional politics, you talk about voter registration. Your name must be on the ballot. It must one man, one vote. INEC has been crucified. Have we not? Who had been crucifying INEC? Is it not NBA? What did the NBA do in this election? Let's go by their statistics. The ECMBA said 82,000 Nigerian lawyers registered to vote. And the person coronated and declared winner of that election had only 12,000 votes.
Out of 82,000?
Yes. And the next other person had 7,000. The next other person had almost 6,000. Put them together. Put all the vote together. If it is INEC, that election should be declared inconclusive. Because there is a principle of law that I know, that where the number of people who are supposed to vote are more in number than the total number of people declare who have participated to vote, that election should be inconclusive because the people who are yet to vote are more. Who says that the people who are yet to vote will not have voted for those that said to have lost? That's one. Two, the presidential candidates themselves, although one of them said he voted, I have tried within my limited understanding of, I couldn't find the name. Are Olumuyiwa Akimboro didn't vote. He could not vote. Lateef Akongbe did not vote. He could not vote. OTPs were flying left, right, and center like Quelabed nests, flying here and there. The informations were flying that this is not authentic platform. Who was the election manager? What was the experience? From available record, the person appointed to conduct that election was incorporated as a sole proprietorship. And under our law, it is not right for a company not to file its annual return. The person was in default and the company was inactive on the day it was appointed to conduct election for the black and largest bar in Africa. People protested. We're talking about capacity, technological know-how. And on the day of the election, the platform collapsed. And instead of admitting to the iniquities and incompetence of the process, people were speculating cyber attack. Let me even agree with them that the platform was attacked. Was it not sufficient reasons to know who attacked and get the people who attacked it to be arrested and prosecuted? Because under the Cybercrime Act, it's an offense to attack. Who did the attack? So that to me is an admission that the foundation, ex nihilo nihil fit, from nothing comes. If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? So the foundation for credible election was destroyed before the election. And so that election, in my humble view, cannot be described as free, fair, and credible. And so, and let me confirm and say that it is not only this election. The problem has been there. With you, if you are a student of history, we had our challenge in Port Harcourt in 1992 because all Nigerian lawyers were congregating in one place to vote. It led to problems. And then the elders decided to go through what is called delegates election, where branches were permitted to elect 10 delegates to go and vote. it was corrupted by the Nigerian people, Nigerian lawyer. Are you with me?
Yes.
Now, they say, okay, let us go electronic. And we started experimenting that electronic voting in 2016. Again, from that 2016 to today, each of the election had ended up in controversy. Yes, the people who are on the other side arguing that this election is credible had argued, and rightly in my view, but faulty in my understanding, that courts have consistently thrown away this case. That is correct argument, but faulty argument that had not been explained to Nigerian people. There is a distinction between a judgment and justice in judgments. The merit of the issue as to whether or not, and let me start with the recent judgment in Ibadan Court of Appeal, that everybody is brandishing and happy like Judiciary has decided, Judiciary has. Look, a judicial decision that does not solve a problem creates more problem. So, in these Ibadan judgments, what was before the court was whether or not the lawyers that went to court had what they call local standard, and whether or not it was the complaint of those lawyers was supposed to have been filed before Federal High Court instead of High Court of Ibadan, and whether High Court Ibadan had jurisdiction to entertain matter involving NBA. It did not decide the question whether ECMBA, appointed, inaugurated, and created by the President of the Bar, was properly constituted in accordance with the NBA Constitution. It did not decide the question whether or not the which of NBA Constitution was being used. Was it the 2015 NBA Constitution as amended in 2015 August, or the NBA Constitution 2025 as amended in Enugu in 2025? If it was the latter, then the constitution of the ECMBA under that constitution is illegal, because at the time the ECMBA was constituted under that constitution, the constitution was yet to be approved by Corporate Affairs Commission, and it is illegal for an unapproved constitution to be used. We are lawyers. No court has decided it. And if it was that constitution, old constitution, the time of constitution of that ECMBA, which was in November 2025, was not the time allowed by the constitution for the ECMBA to be constituted. That law permits that ECMBA should be constituted in the year of election, not in the year preceding the election. They can only tell these stories of judicial validity in the tale by moonlight for those who do not understand the jurisprudence of our law. But somebody like me that have no any other business other than this law, that story makes no sense to me, because the validity of the complaint was never decided. And so nobody should go to town triumphantly singing song of victory of judicial. So the election that brought
Padejo,
outgoing president to power,
Afam Osigwe,
was a subject of court, and it is also technicality. People want to, if my father said that if you are accused of having hernia, you don't go to swear, you remove your trouser. If the thing is there, people will see. People are saying you are tampering with the election from the back end. And you say, I will not open the back end for you to see because it will be against, what law do they call it now? There is this law that privacy of it, you violate the privacy of lawyers. But you did not violate my privacy when you are handing over my particulars to service provider. But for me to see what you are doing from the back end of the computer, you say it's violating the law of privacy, or there's a data protection. God bless your mouth. Says data protection. But Nigerian lawyers' data are being collected and given to one-man business who has been in possession of that data without my knowledge. But for a lawyer to see the data, you say there is data something. And the court is agreeing. And so, in my view, the main grievances of Nigerian lawyers have not been addressed. I was the lead counsel to Atobi Okafor, and I can make it available to you to see that the email of lawyers were changed. Somebody who has ka@gmail.com had his ka@firemail.cc. While the owner of the email is waiting for OTP to vote, somebody higher had been voted. It happens. And I wrote on the 20th of August, 2018, that I weep for the legal profession. I will forward it to you to see. So my cry and disenchantment with NBA didn't start from today. So let it not be that because I have been saying that we need to reform our election. We need to reform our character. When lawyers begin to defend impropriety, when our ethics prohibit us from defending appearance of impropriety, then we are doomed.
You openly accused Afam Osigwe of handpicking the electoral committee to rig the election for his anointed candidate.
That's what he did. He read it, and I can make a copy of his speech to you. Our constitution says appointment of ECMBA shall be done by NEC. NEC is not Afam Osigwe. And so he appointed and it was ratified. Ratification is not synonymous with appointment. We are lawyers. And the court said no English language is without a meaning. If the constitution wanted NEC to ratify, it would have said so. And let him come with the constitution that he acted upon. And so we go for argument. And let us see, let Nigeria see it. I speak from informed position.
You know, I've always wondered, are lawyers trained to defend justice or to simply win a case?
The fundamental role and duty of lawyers is to defend and promote the cause of justice, not to win cases. That's why it is unprofessional for a lawyer to willfully misstate a position in order to secure a victory. A lawyer can even cite authority that is against his clients. That is promoting the rule of law and the cause of justice. So, what I have said to you are things that I witness, that I know. They may not agree, but there is no amount of coloration you give to wrong that will make it right. It will look, a time will come, if we are not careful, as I have said, people may start stoning us on the road. Very shortly. So we need to change our ways.
With all of this, can people like me still confidently say that the court is the last hope of the common man?
What is the answer to your question? Can you say so now?
I cannot.
So that's the answer.
One of the things that broke my heart or breaks my heart on a daily basis is recently the Minister of Interior, if I'm not mistaken, came out and said that over 80% of inmates have no business being in prison.
Absolutely correct.
So what is the judiciary or lawyers like you doing about it?
No.
Is it that case is irredeemable?
Don't lay the blame at the doorsteps of judiciary. Judiciary is one of the partners in administration of justice. It's not the main, although it's the ultimate decider. There are a lot of things that a lot of institutions that are part and parcel of administration of justice. The security agencies, the prison, the Ministry of Justice. So, if you ask me, the Nigerian government is not ready for justice to be delivered in its purest form. Most of the security agencies are underfunded. The judiciary is also, Nigeria is about the only country where judges still write in longhand. If you go to National Assembly, have you ever seen the Senate President writing? The next 2 hours after the deliberation in that chambers, you have the Hansard duly printed and given to you. Have you ever applied for record of proceeding in Nigerian court? And you know how many days it will take you. Even though the Constitution says that a judgment, once delivered, you have 7 days to get it, sometimes it takes you months to get it because somebody to type may not be there. Somebody, his lordship, who is writing, needs to read the judgments that have been typed in order for somebody not to insert something there. And he has other judgment to deliver tomorrow. So, the justice system is not well funded. That's why, in my view, I cannot even fault the judiciary for what is going on. Because the Constitution talked about money meant for judiciary to be given to the judiciary. But the executive is not giving the money. So my view is, I'm sure you must have read about Kenya, where lawyers decided to say enough is enough. That's why I'm worried about NBA. If NBA is above board, things will change. But are we? I doubt. So, the justice, look, crime has gone global. Crime had gone certificated. You no longer have petty thieves. You have those who sit with the computer and make humongous amount of money unlawfully. You need a man who is an expert to investigate that kind of crime and produce evidence that a crime had been committed. So how many Nigerian security operatives are well trained and are well equipped with sophisticated machinery, technology, forensic experts who can tell you, yours sincerely this year was how do I put it now? 419 and 9 million collected from my hand on the basis of pity, thinking that I was dealing with human being. I didn't know that I was dealing with an organized crime. I filed a motion to block the account since March. It was only last week that the judiciary had time to attend to my process. So, and for no fault of the judiciary, because as at today, Supreme Court is giving a date in 2027, 2028. Have you not heard and read of an interlocutory applications that have been pursued for the past 20 years? And in the words of His Lordship, J.S, the main case is in the cooler, waiting at the trial court. A lawyer is carrying interlocutory application that the merit of the matter is not touched. So sometimes, or have you not heard that I got a judgment for teachers on the 18th of February 2008. That judgment was not realized until this year. How many years? And it took the magnanimity and kindness of the Supreme Court to put an end to the delaying process being filed by those who didn't want to obey the. So that's why, in my view, until we have a middle remedy, until the judiciary and security agencies and justice sectors are properly funded the way politicians fund themselves in the executive and legislature, we have not started yet. Because the judiciary is the least, the justice sector is the least funded by Nigerian government.
Just two more questions and I'll let you go, sir. Just two more questions. One of them is about the police, the Nigerian police. So I've often wondered, is it legally right to arrest a suspect, keep the suspect either in a police cell or awaiting trial before carrying out investigation?
It is
or
wrong.
Is it?
It is wrong. And I think it was my Lord, Honorable Justice Aloma Mukhtar, that says so before. Nigeria is the only country I know that you are arrested before investigation. In other crime, you are monitored. There is surveillance on you. Your movement, your activities, what you do. By the time you are confronted with irrefutable evidence of your culpability, you won't argue. Until recently, you are given a bath rest to extract information from you in order to use it to convince you. Do you know what is bath rest? Your hand and your leg are hung, and somebody is giving you koboko from the nyash, and you are asked, did you do it? And in order to free yourself, you agree to have done it. It was part of the reform in AJA, Administration of Criminal Justice Act, that your statement extracted without the presence of lawyer or videotaping or any of the electronic gadgets to show that it's voluntary becomes inadmissible. That's how crooked and crook we are to ourselves. But in other crime, there are some prisons that are better than some apartments in this country. You are given a humane treatment, in fact, in other crime, once a police comes with handcuff, you don't struggle with. But in Nigeria, you beat a policeman with gun and collect his gun. To show power. We love power. So it is wrong to arrest before commencing investigation. And that's why I have my problem with the system that you go to court, obtain a remand order. It's in my view, unconstitutional.
That one is my biggest fear, that I could just sit down here, have a problem with someone, and the police will arrest me and buy.
In fact, in those days, if you struggle over some things with me and I'm more than you, they'll put a tag of armed robbery on your neck and you are in prison. I know of a client that I had, I don't know where he is now, Mr. Simota, was alleged to have been involved in weed. And before you know it, the offense was turned to armed robbery. Until we were able to get him out sometimes in 1992 or 93, and he escaped from this country. Because he not escape as in he was discharged and acquitted.
Yeah,
you have to leave. Because when the justice system is not friendly, is crooked, if you go to a police station, the stench, the odor is sufficient to give you malaria. And yet policemen work there. And you expect them to buy disinfectant themselves. Sometimes I don't blame the Nigerian police, because sometimes they fuel their vehicles themselves. And this vehicle is what Lord Dennis called being reasonably driven along the road. So it cannot even be used to pursue any crime, any criminal. So,
what is your take, finally, sir? If I let you go, what is your take on the Prince Adeyemi Ambajamila Phantom NJC?
it's sub judice. A court will obey it. I have no take.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this episode. And if you've watched this point, I want to thank you so much for staying with us. And I want to take out this moment to appreciate you so much, sir. I didn't know I was going to keep you this long, but your answers, matter of fact, sometimes I forget that I was the one asking the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate it.
And thank you for the privilege to be here. I wish you well. Even God himself, the beginning was not as rosy as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say, let there be light. And there was light. I pray for light for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And sir, we're going to definitely have you on this podcast another time. When we send another invitation, please do accept and honor us again with your presence.
I just pray I will be able to do it.
Thank you.
Because I'm tired of talking about Nigeria.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.